it's time. Would you mind? We'll just record it.
So I know y'all said that the death penalty is a way as like retribution, but how do we know if it's retribution or more just like vengeance?
Well, the way we define retributive justice.
Hang on, sorry, hang on. Ooh. This is the first speaker speaking, right?
Oh, is it? Oh, is it still? I didn't know. Is it still? Who has to ask the question?
Oh, you know, for the crossfire thing.
Yeah, just whoever's
it's just us.
my bad.
Right. I forgot crossfire. Right.
Okay.
My bad.
Once again, Michelle, start from the beginning. When you're ready, tell me I should start my time on for your crossfire.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm ready.
Ready?
Yeah. Hi Jessica, I'm Mass. So the first thing that we want to talk about is how you claimed that retribution was necessary. In the way that you explained retribution, it seemed like it was coming across as vengeance. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Oh yeah, those are two different things. So when we say retributive justice, we are saying protection like by order of punishing wrongdoings. Mm-hmm. So in order to prevent future wrongdoings,
sure.
Or like curtail the actions of one person, we punish them instead of like not. So when you say you're for the like abolition of the death penalty, you mean entirely no form of it is existing, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what would you do with the people on death row? Where would they go?
We would put them in a max security prison, and with we need to reform prisons and stuff like that. And obviously with the death penalty, it comes with killing somebody, and we disagree with that statement, that that's necessary to do the Retribution Act or whatever. But yeah, so basically our point was basically the Death Penalty Information Center talks about how we don't punish crimes by doing the exact same crime to them, and so that's kind of where we're at.
Okay. Okay. And so when you talk about moving them into maximum security prison, one of your points was that it was cost effective to not execute. Mm-hmm. How would you then deal with the increased cost of moving almost 3,000 people into maximum security prison?
That's a great question. I haven't considered it. Also,
So I'm here to rebuttal for the affirmative side that the death penalty should be abolished and should not be in use for capital punishment. The reason being is I know you talked about how the death penalty serves as a way as retribution, but I feel like as a way to balance out the crime with the punishment. But I feel like this reflects a natural concern for our society, as I believe that we should seek a higher road even when punishing the guilty, and that we shouldn't kill the killer or rape the rapist. That just things like that, how it's just an eye for an eye. It's I don't really understand how we can condone or try to fix violence by condoning more violence. In a way, I feel like that is the reason why U.S. crime rates are also higher in places that have the death penalty abolished, like Canada, Australia, Germany, and many more other countries. They don't have the death penalty as a way of deterrence, and their crime rates are less, which shows that it is effective to stop. And another thing is, y'all say it acts as a way of deterrence, but criminals, obviously, when they commit their crime, they have no intention of getting detected, caught, arrested, or convicted. So even the most severe punishments won't stop them from committing the crimes they commit, because they won't commit the crime if they know they're going to get caught. And then furthermore, when you said protect the people, but how do we know that protect the people is not just protecting the wealthy people, where the people have better lawyers, better, people for their laws suits? Because it has been proven that many cases have been unfairly influenced to the side that has the better lawyers, the more money. There's, religious, racial minorities that could have something to do with if they get in trouble or not. And, what was I saying? That's all I got.
That's
We're
it.
good. Yeah.
The affirmative side stated that something about false convictions, like if one innocent person being murdered is enough. Is that enough to justify murder? Then what about the government killing one person by mistake? Okay, that's understandable. But according to the Death Penalty Information Center, since 1973, 195 people have been released from the death row after reviewing the case, thus were exonerated of all charges related to the wrongful convictions that has put them on death row. This shows that there are systems in place to ensure that people are being thoroughly investigated prior to their sentencing. A person being investigated, then proven not guilty by jury, will not still be sentenced to death. That is not how the modern U.S. judicial system works. For cases when a person was found innocent after their death, that is in the past. We cannot know that if in that jury and judge, even with this evidence found later, there is no way of determining if that would have changed the sentence. You also brought up the cost of the death penalty. Capital punishment only extends to the most intense crimes that require total separation from society. The funds used within the death penalty will still have to be used in alternative methods. The justice for the victim should be held at a higher priority. We should follow through with the death penalty because the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy article on retributive justice states that there are 5 elements of punishment that are essential for the purpose of understanding retributivism. The second element being that a punisher must inflict hard treatment intentionally, not as an accident, and not as a side effect of pursuing some other end. For example, while sending a criminal to prison often has foreseeable harmful effects on the criminal's family, retributivists would say that those harms do not constitute punishment, not unless they are purposely inflicted as a part of the punishment of the crime. Can the death penalty serve as a deterrent? Yes, the death penalty for habitual criminals serves as a deterrent, sending a strong message that society will not tolerate repeated acts of serious criminal behavior. An article written by the Office of Justice Programs claimed life without parole should be considered on its own merits. However, not in its conjunction with life without parole as a punishment for habitual offenders or drug kingpins, but for punishing murderers deemed most dangerous and severe. The article claims that life without parole is an effective alternative for convicted murderers, but if they are habitual murderers or gang leaders, they should be given the death penalty. A research article published in 2020 by Paul Barr and Andrew Palmer reviewed Michael Moore, a prominent normative theorist, theory on retributive system. The retributive system offers a general formulation of our considered judgments and intuitions about cases concerning the evaluation and treatment of serious criminal wrongs. It is not deduced from a higher order principle, but is instead derived via abductive reasoning from particular judgments, views, and intuitions about specific cases of criminal wrongs. These are cases of murder, rape, or other similar violent wrongs against persons. Yes, and that was brought up because, as stated by the affirmative, they defined it for violent crime.
we give him 30 seconds.
30 seconds? Ready?
I have the first question. Do you think those that are not minorities deserve justice? Because you claimed that,
I never claimed that minorities deserve justice. I'm saying that there have been examples in the real world where people of minorities or lesser economy, like who can't buy as good lawyers, have had unfair trials in the past. And so reactance occurs when individuals perceive a threat to their freedom by like rules that kind of they think like controls them, and so they are more inclined to break the rules. So I'm asking, do you think the death penalty is more like deterrence or reactance? As in, I feel like since there's a rule to break, people are more inclined to break the rule, which is the death penalty in this situation.
reactive?
You think it's reactive?
Criminals aren't stopped by punishment. If they won't be stopped by the death penalty, why would they be stopped by jail time? Are you not concerned about stopping the crime?
Well, the death penalty and life on parole are two things that I believe can still negate the threat of a criminal ever seeing the light of day again. And as well as when, if you reform them during their life in parole, they can also, reflect on what they did. Maybe they think they did the wrong thing. They can teach people who are also in jail or prison with them and tell them not to do what they did. And this is a good way to help conform criminals to do better in the future, rather than just killing them. So there's not really a lesson to learn by just killing them, because they didn't, Alright, I think we're ready.
Okay, so I'm gonna be the third speaker because we only have two people. I'm gonna be discussing why, again, that the death penalty should be abolished. I'm gonna basically be summarizing our points that we previously made and why they are strong backing for our claims. So first, my first point that I mentioned in our first round was that the death penalty does not actually deter future crimes because of the data that we received from the Death Penalty Information Center, that the murder rate of non-death penalty states have remained consistently lower than the states with the death penalty involved. And then, so that evidence alone does support that deterring future crimes is inaccurate, and that we do not have strong enough evidence to back that claim, that death penalty deters crime. Similarly, I discussed that the death penalty was an extreme and irreversible act, and mistakes were bound to happen. My opponents did mention that there were many cases where the death penalty row, the death row inmates were released back into prison, and that they were removed from the death penalty row, or the death row. That's because these trials went back on trial, and that they found new evidence, or they found more innocence, and the risk of killing somebody with the death penalty forces a timeline on those cases, and that the risk is just too large when such a huge number have been reversed. The cases have been reversed, and so that's a really important note to add. But yeah, so the death penalty is again extreme and irreversible, and mistakes are bound to happen. I then went on to say that the death penalty had extreme costs and burdens to the taxpayers, and that it would be beneficial for the death penalty to be abolished for those reasons. Yeah, that's basically it. Good little summary.
Thank you. We, as a negative, want to restate our central claim of that the reason why we choose not to abolish the death penalty is because it is saved for the most heinous and violent crimes. The affirmative says that we need to abolish it because it's morally unethical, it's not right, we can't make sure that people are not on death row and they are truly violent criminals. However, I feel like they failed to talk about how, when Demaya stated that there were cases in which there are studies that deterrence did work, and it was founded by the Office the Office of Justice Programs, claiming that life without parole should be considered on its own merits. It's not something that's anywhere related. Additionally, they didn't speak about the cost again in their contentions. They just stated it in the beginning and they never brought it up again. I understand that costs of the death penalty can take a lot out of someone, and it takes a lot of the taxpayers. However, those costs are gonna come from somewhere anyways. Are you saying that we shouldn't put costs into justice, into finding the rights of victims and making sure that people are seeing the justice that they need in order to save some money? I'm not understanding that sentiment, because these people, they go on trial, they want to find justice, they want to find the people who hurt them or their families, and it is unfair to take that away from them because it's costly or because it's timely, whatever reason it may be. Additionally, you guys talk about retrials and how most of the people who were removed off death row were put on retrial, but I didn't hear any statistics about it. I don't know how many people were going on death row and putting it back on trial because they were taken off and put back on. That is not something that usually happens. If you are taken off trial because you are no longer seen as the victim, that's not gonna or is no longer seen as the criminal, that's not gonna happen. You cannot be tried for the same crime more than once. Once it's been said that you did not do it, they can't try you again for that. So I'm not sure where that statistic is coming from, or if there was some misinformation, or if you can re-clarify that, because I did not understand what you meant by that. Additionally, I feel like they are failing to recognize the necessity for victims to be able to see their abuser, the person that hurt them, face trial and actually receive the justice that they need. Many victims have stated that they want the death penalty, that they would be willing to go through the process, they would be willing to go through all the motions in order to make sure that these criminals are receiving the utmost punishment that they can, because they took something from them. For example, in the Donald Dobik case in 1990, USA Today reported that fugitive Donald Dobik had escaped prison 11 years into his life sentence from previously murdering Lee County Deputy Dwight Lynn Hall in 1979. He approached Faye Van's car with a paring knife and demanded a ride. After refusing and fighting against Dobik, Faye was stabbed 20 times in her throat, and her throat was slit, killing her. At his execution, the Van children stated that 11,932 days ago, Donald Dobik brutally killed our mother. We were robbed of years of memories with her, and it was been very painful ever since. However, the execution has given us some closure. They even thank Governor Ron DeSantis for his role in forwarding the execution. So, had it not been for the death penalty, these people would not have gotten the justice that they needed. Had we not had it, we would have taken that away from them. They already lost their mother. They would have lost the case. It would have been for nothing. And then there's multiple cases as well. In the Jimmy Lee Gray case in 1968, Gray had murdered his 16-year-old girlfriend, and he served 7 years in the Arizona prison for a crime, for that crime, and not even his mother wept. She had written earlier written to Governor William Winter and the Mississippi Supreme Court pleading that her son not be spared, saying that he deserved to die. So it is shown time and time again that these violent criminals, that these heinous crimes do not deserve anything more than the utmost punishment. It is not something that we are taking lightly. It is not something that we are saying it should be for every single crime that's ever existed in the entire world. It is, just as you said, held for violent crime, for hate, for the most atrocious of people. These people don't deserve those rights. I hurt my tongue.
Hang on. You should know. You're doing the debate.
For the negative, we have a question. I was wondering if you can source where you found this burden for taxpayers. I don't believe you stated any sources for that.
Yes, I actually ran out of time on my third point with the taxpayer money and stuff. So I found a bunch of statistics from the Amnesty International with one legislative audit from Kansas, as well as the Tennessee Treasury Office research. I believe I read the Kansas audit, but I can read it again. It basically explained that the estimated cost of the death penalty was 70% more than the cost of comparable non-death penalty cases. And then the statistic that I wasn't able to, the other statistics I wasn't able to read due to like the lack of time, was that from Tennessee, death penalty costs an average of 48% more than the average cost of trials in which prosecutors seek life imprisonment. And then there was another statistic, there were actually one more statistic that I wasn't able to read due to time, but this one was according to the Urban Institute in Maryland. Death penalty cases cost 3 times more than non-death penalty cases. And yeah.
Do you know?
I just ran out of time.
Oh, sorry. Do you know if this fund comes from a general do you know where the funds come from? Is it from separate, or is it from just general prison funds?
I'm honestly not too sure. I took these statistics in hopes of proving that there was like a large range in the cost, comparing the non-death penalty cases to death penalty cases. Yeah, I'm not sure where the funds actually.
Well, I guess a better way to phrase that is, are people taxed for the death penalty separate, or is it just people are taxed and then we use that money? Or is it the death penalty incurs a cost on the people?
It's a great question.
We cannot answer
I had a question. You stated that people of lower income cannot have a good trial, but I ask you, why do you say that when they have the right to attorney? They are offered an attorney for trials.
I feel like that even if you do have a right to an attorney, there's still a lot of factors that go into getting a good attorney. If an attorney wants to work with you, even though you have the right to, there's still an attorney might not accept, let's say a poor, maybe not as,
Do you have a source for that?
Is that a death penalty thing, or is that a general?
That was in comment as to why we shouldn't have a death penalty.
Oh no, I mean but okay, sorry, is that a death penalty issue or a general criminal justice system issue?
Affirmative.
Can we time out?
Time out? How much?
How much? We have 30 seconds, early minute left. 30?
1 minute left.
Can we use all of it?
So conclusion is agreement. Is there anything you say, basically?
Yep. Headed there, yeah, that's it.
Oh, we're good, we're good.
Okay. 5 minutes on the clock. Ready when you are, Professor?
So in conclusion, the affirmative side would like to once again agree with the statement that the death penalty or capital punishment should be abolished and discontinued in the whole. To re-summarize our points, the death penalty does not show enough quantitative data to support and prove that the death penalty is an efficient way to prevent the future actions of these potential criminals and lawbreakers. There has been a numerous number of places that do not condone or utilize capital punishment that show lower crime rates than places that do have the death penalty. In fact, we believe that the death penalty could instead actually facilitate crime rates. The saying that it is our duty and that justice must be served, and that the only way for justice to be served is from a murderer to get killed, or for the person who killed to be killed. But is that really retribution or is that really revenge? A way to get vengeance for what has been done. Vengeance is a strong and natural emotion, but it has no place in our justice system. A life for a life is a saying that has never been endorsed in our society. For example, we do not allow torturing the torturer or raping the rapist. So taking a life for a life is a disproportionate punishment. Furthermore, killing a murderer seems like the easy way out. And a life in incarceration not only prolongs a sad death, but it also allows the perpetrator time to really self-reflect and change whether or not that what happened was the right or wrong thing to do. Instead of just killing and not learning any lessons from the person who caused the crime, rather than just fighting violence for more violence, because that will only increase more violence, we should look for a better way to stop future crimes, which is to, in the present, set a better example for the people of the future so that they do not commit these crimes. And the death penalty is an irreversible and severe punishment, and it's and life is the number one thing that everyone should treasure. And losing a life to a faulty trial or an innocent being killed is just something that I think is that consequence outweighs all the advantages that capital punishment brings. Lastly, the death penalty is not the best process. I just think that there's too many factors that could go wrong, that could lead to a trial being misguided, misread, whatever, leading to a fair decision not being ethical or right in that case. And I mean, what happens when you do kill an innocent person? You can't change the past, That's a decision that's made that on the spot could be very bad. Thank you.
We, the negative, have provided the historical background of the death penalty to understand its roots and the role it played for the stability and security of nations in the past. It is crucial to understand why eye for an eye was even adopted back then. It is the foundation and understanding of why it came to be in the first place, which is not provided nor acknowledged by the affirmative. And when it comes to the brutality and moral ethics of the death penalty, it's nowhere near as grotesque as it was centuries ago. If anything, the modern methods used to grant criminals a more merciful death when compared to the torture methods used by past empires. Regardless of the method, those empires set a standard of intolerance to certain heinous crimes such as murder and sexual assault of the innocent. If this standard is removed, it gives those with sick and twisted intentions more of an incentive. If they go into their crimes knowing that they'll face prison time, sure, but then they'll be rewarded with rehabilitation, And that goes into their first contention about it does not deter crime. It is a mindset shift. If that standard is there, then criminals do not have that incentive. Like I said rewarded because that's essentially what they were receiving. Why give those criminals who commit these crimes any form of leeway? That leeway being rehabilitation. And when it comes to the innocence claim, there are complex systems in check to ensure that the criminals are either innocent or guilty. And for those cases where they were innocent and they did face the death penalty, unfortunately sometimes it's unnecessarily evil, but again, it's in the past. We have to move on. We need to accept the fact that there are people who are incorrigible, cannot change. They do not feel remorse for those who they have hurt. Inhumane monsters. That's who they are. In terms of their contention 3, which they mentioned the costs, but just kind of got rid of that point once they got to it. In terms of cost, it is worth every penny to make sure that a convicted rapist/murderer is properly investigated. The affirmative and those who are in favor of abolishing the death penalty need to get off of this high horse of morality. Sure, you could turn that around and say the same for us. But this is a situation that comes in absolutes and needs to be treated as such. In order for proper retributive justice to be dealt, the value of a life needs to be measured. As far as we know, humans only get one life. With the chances of even being born are astronomically low. You could say that the value of life itself is infinite. The most valuable asset anyone can have is their own life. To those who have committed the most heinous of crimes, to have a child murderer, child rapist such as Jimmy Lee Gray, take that away from someone, multiple people in fact. In order for there to objectively be a fair trade of justice, the life to right should be revoked. That is proper, fulfilled justice when taking the situation in absolutes. And looking at the sheer value of life. Justice is for the victim. Justice is for the victims and those family and friends of said victim. Their rights should